Welcome to Storytime with Cozy Melka, where we gather to share tales about responsibility, courage, and honesty. As we come together, let's put on our listening ears as we're transported into amazing stories. For this episode, we'll be learning about bravery versus injustice as we continue our tale about the clever rogue, Robin Hood and his merry men. So without further ado, let's find a cozy spot, grab a friend, and let's enjoy a great story. All right, Chapter 2, How Robin Took to the Woods. Guy of Gisborne and his men were still a mile away when Robin's keen eyes, such eyes as were seldom equaled for their sure vision, picked out Guy as the leader of the band, and instantly Robin linked up his glimpse of Herbert, the ranger, gazing at the house a little while earlier. Sebald sheltering in the barn and the carcass of the deer that Sebald had brought down. Here was danger of the worst sport springing and denly out of the day's end. But Robin was the man to meet it. Moving with such certainty that he seemed not to hurry at all, he stepped back into the house, buckled on his sword, and reached for his long bow and quiver. He had Will Scarlet, his head man, armed in like fashion, and out rousing the serfs, while Guy and his band were still half a mile distant. Now came Sebald running from the barn, and he knelt before Robin as he stood in his doorway. Master Robin, cried Sebald, 'tis I have brought this danger on you, and what is life to me? Let me give up myself to them, and appease them, if indeed they come on this matter of the slain deer. But Robin shook his head. Quiet and hide, Sebald, he bade. No man shall trust himself to me, and find me fail him. Be the price of what it may. Back down, and I will settle with this proud Stuart Guy. He had with him Will Scarlet on his right, and on his left was a fat youth with a great yew bow. This lad was Much, son of old Much the miller, who should have been helping his father at the mill, but had stolen away to drink ale with Scarlet instead, being a lazy lad by nature. Yet having drunk Robin's ale, he took his bow and stood by Robin, now trouble threatened, though he knew nothing of the nature of the trouble. Behind these three were 6 of Robin's serfs who could handle either bow or quarterstaff well, since Robin always encouraged such play among them, not knowing when it might be useful. So stood the 9 of them, with Sebald crouching somewhere in the rear, while Guy of Gisborne rode into hearing, and the short winter dusk was darkening swiftly. Robin laid an arrow on the string and held the bow lightly, as did both Scarlet and Much. Guy, who knew even then what skill the man before him had with the bow, reined in as he saw the arrows fitted. "Robin of Locksley!" Guy cried out from the barred visor of his helm. "Put down your arms, and yield you all to me, steward and liege man of Abbot Hugo de Renault, that you may suffer your due punishment." But Robin lifted the bow as if to take aim, and Guy's men-at-arms raised their shields as they saw it. "Strong words, steward," Robin answered composedly. "Why and for what shall we yield us?" "For that you and your men have slain the king's deer in the forest of Sherwood," Guy called back, "and for that I declare you, Robin of Locksley, dispossessed of your holdings, and to lose your right hand, that you may draw a bow no more." "Without trial, steward?" Robin asked incredulously. "Without defense or question you pass judgment in sentence?" "Trial, hind?" Guy echoed contemptuously. "What thinks you yourself, a baron of the realm, that you look for trial? The case is proved against you, and in the name of Abbot Hugo I do justice on you, and such men are as guilty with you. Look for no trial for me." "Justice, you Norman thief?" Robin fired back. "I tell you, Guy of Gisborne, since King Richard went crusading, there have been no justice in our England, else evil men like you never held place over honest people. Let your men come but another 10 paces forward, and some of you shall never see another day's light." Guy sat still on his horse for nearly a minute. Then he beckoned a man of his, who came with shield raised to guard head and breast from any arrow that might fly. "Loose me a crossbow bolt or 2 at that tall felon, and make us free way into Locksley farmstead," Guy bade quietly. The men stepped back among his fellows and fitted a bolt to the crossbow behind another shield. The feathered quarrel hissed viciously, unexpectedly, and a serf who stood between and a little behind Robin himself and Scarlet crumpled down without a sound, for the point had entered his brain. Without losing sight of Guy's movements, Robin saw the deed. "First blood!" he cried. "Now guard you, Guy of Gisborne, for here you shall only enter dead." On the word he loosed the arrow from his string, and it quivered and stuck in the visor bars of Guy of Gisborne's helm, so strongly shot The guy reeled and nearly fell from his saddle with the shock. And scarce had that arrow struck before a second shaft from Eris's bow went in the neck of the crossbowman who had shot the serf, so that the man fell, with his lifeblood pouring out into the snow. Now, are we all dead men if they take us? Robin said to his followers. So shoot hard and often till they come at us, and may the shafts pierce the mail. But do not run, Much, for this is no quarrel of yours. I will run, said Much, no more than a barrel of ale untapped, for here is foul work, and I will not see it done, good master. At that he loosed his string and sent a shaft humming to glance off Vertrainer's shield harmlessly. 7 other arrows sang through the air, and one of them found the brain of man-at-arms, and one went through a man's calf so that he sat down in the snow and squealed as he pulled the shaft through the wound. An end of 3, said Robin, who grew cool now the fight had begun, and still stands Locksley untouched. He sighted one man whose crossbow was aimed, and drove off a humming shaft that took the man in the wrist and pierced through flesh and gristle up to the elbow. 4, he shouted, as the man turning and ran shrieking. How like you our welcome steward? If you get not my right hand, you get the use of it. With all his force he loosed another shaft at Guy's helmet, in which the broken end of the first arrow still struck. The second arrow struck higher, squarely in the front of the steel, which, as Robin knew, it could not pierce. But the force of it was so great that Guy of Gisborne tumbled down into the snow, and lay half stunned with shock. And while he lay, a heap of rags shot out from behind Robin, fled across the intervening space, and a wild scream went up as Sebald the Dolt leapt on Herbert the Ranger, a flying fury. This is for my wife starved, yelled Sebald, and this for the child you thrust out into the cold. And twice the knife with which he had cut up the deer flashed, while Herbert, drawing his dagger even as he was stabbed, fell dying, and thrust the dagger into Sebald's heart, so that he too fell dead on the body of the man who had turned him out from his hut at Guy of Gisborne's bidding. There was a tall man of Guy's following who, when his master fell, advanced with drawn sword to stand over him, and presently Guy got on his feet and drew his sword as well. The 2 of them led on, both covered in mail, against the party in the shadow of the house, among whom were now 7 unarmed and 2 dead by crossbow bolts. But Guy's party had nearly 30 yards to come, against the finest archer who ever drew bow in England, and they came heavily because of the deep soft snow, while the great arrows hummed towards them. So it was the only these 2 came up, for the rest of the Guise's men 3 sat shielding themselves in the snow, sore wounded, and the rest lay dead. But Guy of Gisborne, thrusting in his mill of proof, came on, as did his man, and Much the miller's son ran out with his quarterstaff and thwacked the man across his helm, so that he fell down senseless. But Robin stood against Guy of Gisborne with his sword, and Scarlet and the serf stood around to see the fight. It was a fight of which there could be soon end, for Guy of Gisborne, heavily armed, and but lately stunned by Robin's arrow ringing against his helm, was slow, while Robin skipped round him and struck where he could. At last Robin lifted his sword and brought it down on the helmet so strongly that the blade snapped, and as Guy staggered, Robin flung the useless hilt away and wrenched Guy's own sword out of his nerveless grasp. Now yield to my justice, steward, Robin bade. Never, said Guy, grated back. Seize him, Scarlet, said Robin. To it, serfs, and bind him tightly. There is a reckoning due now. They grasped and held the man, while Robin himself went off and led in the roan war horse on which Guy had ridden. He came back with it to where they held Guy of Gisborne prisoner. Guy was cursing most foully. Cease, Robin thundered at him. Are honest serfs to have their ears befouled by such a man as this? By the rude steward, death is but an inch distant from thee. Kill and make an end, said Guy. I had as well be dead as shamed. Not so, said Robin, for there has been enough of killing this day, and the shaming is not yet finished. Hark, steward, for this killing I am an outlawed man, and these poor loyal souls with me, that much I know. Abbot Hugo will welcome the excuse, but I have it in mind to send him a messenger of this day's work before the price is set on my head. Lift him on the horse, Scarlet, and face his head towards its tail. They did this, Scarlet and his serfs having most mightily until they had the kicking, struggling steward placed. Then they brought ropes at Robin's bidding, and Much the miller's son lashed Guy's feet tightly under the horse so that he could not move to dismount. Now, steward, said Robin, ride you thus to Abbot Hugo, or first to your own grange, I care not which. But say to Abbot Hugo that from this day he may take Locksley Farm to the use of the fat thieves that wear the cowl and St. Mary's under him. Tell him, too, that he and his shall pay for the farm. From this day I declare war on him, and all his kind, as on you and your kind, who from behind stone walls ravage and imperial honest men. Honest, Guy roared savagely. I, said Robin, a word to anger you, since honesty and you are such strangers. I tell you and your abbot steward that for this day's work I will have a reckoning against you oppressors, who thrust women and children out to starve in the cold and die. Scarlet gave him a rein in each hand and let him go. Then Robin picked up the steward's sword and struck the horse across his flank with the flat of it, and Guy rode off, facing towards them in the darkness, shouting threats of the vengeance of Abbot Hugo until he was out of hearing. Now, said Robin, there is much to do. Let us bury these our men who died for us, but leave Guy's men till he come again. This they did, and when it was over, Robin gathered his men in the great front room of the farmstead and spoke to them by a flickering rushlight, while they sat over meat and ale. With the dawn comes Guy again, he told them, and for today's work there is torture and a hanging for every man of us if they find us. We will stand by you, master, Scarlet said. Ay, but not on a scaffold, Robin answered. As for me, I am for the depths of Sherwood, where no man may track or find us, a free life in an open lands, with wood aplenty for fires to warm us and to roast our meat as we bring it down. War on those who have drained our lives, but all but labor, that they may fatten in these. Who comes with me? Ay, said Scarlet and Much together, and then all the rest answered too. They were but 9, all told, that followed Robin of Locksley to the forest at first, but they were brave men, all, as he knew. I thank you, friends, he said, and I look for a better life there than any have known yet. Now to take all that we carry for our comfort and away. This thaw will hide our tracks. But first do you, Much, take the lad Waltham to your father's mill and leave him there to be tended. By midnight, Locksley homestead stood empty. Thank you for joining us for Story Time with Cozy Malka. We'd love for you to share with our friends what you learned from tonight's tale. Join us next time for the continuing adventures of Robin Hood.